Then I saw this neon green beam of light come down from the ceiling on the right side of my bedroom. I focused my attention on it and kept looking at this beam of light, anticipating for something to show itself. Nothing appeared, but I got this intuitive feeling to look to the left side of my bed instead. So I shifted my eyes from the green beam of light to the left side of my bed. And there it was, a glowing light being standing right up against my bed. Hi, my name is Vicky Lynn, and welcome to the Higher Perspective Podcast, a show about seeing the truth to heal. Every week, I explore the non-physical realms that make up most of reality to bring awareness to the importance of spiritual health, inner healing, and energetics so that you can awaken to the truth of who you are. Welcome back to the third episode. Today, I'm going to change things up a bit. I'm going to get personal and share my very first interdimensional contact experience. You may remember I brought up in the first episode that I've had numerous mystical experiences and visitations with different light beings. Even though those are some of the most ecstatic moments in my life, I've actually never openly talked about them because of the stigma and judgments society has towards individuals who have anomalous experiences. They get labeled as mental illness. I understand that mental illness is a real problem, and many do suffer from that, now more than ever. But I also think that genuine spiritual experiences are a normal and natural part of being human if you are in touch with your soul. However, in our current society, humanity is largely disconnected from their soul. People do not have an authentic spiritual practice where they have a direct personal connection to the divine, which occurs through their own soul. So they've completely lost touch with this magical part of themselves. Therefore, people really don't have the context to recognize what a genuine spiritual experience would even look like or feel like anymore. People typically tend to label things they don't understand and are not familiar with as crazy or evil, because that's so much easier to do than challenge their own mental constructs of reality, which is a lot more uncomfortable and requires doing work to step outside of the box and expand consciousness. As well, society has adopted a left-brain dominant culture where science overpowers spirit, where the soul, along with the spiritual connections it has to the divine, are literally being socially engineered and taken out of humanity. So if you have no relationship to this part of yourself, how would you even be able to distinguish between mental health and spiritual health? I don't think you can. Another reason is that after this happened to me, I experienced major cognitive dissonance myself. What happened shattered my understanding of reality, the world, and who I was as a human being. It took me 6.5 years to work through that and heal before I was able to fully integrate the experience and understand the multidimensional aspect of reality and being human. That's also how long it took me to accept this unique part of me. And now I'm happy to say that I love this part of me, to the point where I feel ready and even excited to share more of this part of me with the world. Actually, I want to make a quick announcement. So far, the work that I have been sharing online has only been my podcast and my intuitive light language healing music. I've been working on something new recently to add to that mix. Starting next week, I'm going to be releasing monthly channeled messages in cosmic light language with an English translation. These transmissions come from my soul accessing its own multidimensional origins from the stars and sharing spiritual guidance from that higher state of consciousness. These transmissions will support the things I talk about in my podcast, but from a much bigger picture. Similar to my intuitive light language music, these transmissions are also encoded with sound frequencies intended to bring healing to you, but also to help awaken you to your own multidimensional self. You are so much more than just your physical human self, and I hope that when you hear these transmissions, you'll feel a sense of home, a sense of familiar kinship that reminds you where you're from and who you really are. It's also my way of introducing you to my interdimensional family and connections. I've been recording these for myself, and when I listen to them, I can feel the frequency of love and support. In times like these that we are in, I think many need that as well, so I'm intuitively guided to share them publicly now. This is something that's a bit intimate for me to share, so I really hope you'll enjoy them. Okay, so if your mind is open and you're ready for story time, let's begin by taking a journey back in time to December 31st, 2015 at 9 p.m. on New Year's Eve. I felt a sudden onset of extreme fatigue. It came out of nowhere, and it was so strong I simply could not fight it off anymore. So I decided to call it a night and go to bed. Sleeping right through into the new year was going to be the plan. While I was sleeping, right here, in the center of my forehead, I felt this intense pressure build up so much that it woke me. It felt like the inside of my head was being squeezed between two metal plates, and it hurt. Right after I woke up, I started to feel my whole bed shake violently. My initial thought was that there was an earthquake happening, but no, it was not an earthquake. Next, I heard this extremely loud and powerful sound. The best way I can describe it is that it sounded like a multidimensional horn in a deep bass tone that just resonated through everything. As these vibrations reverberated through my bedroom, all these flashing lights started going off at the same time. It was in this very moment that I had a sense of dread wash over me because I intuitively knew what was unfolding and I wasn't prepared for it. I started to panic and I started to feel scared. I remember thinking to myself this one line, and that was, "It's happening to me." What I meant by that was I've casually come across the topic of aliens in the past through mainstream movies and pop culture, like most people. But that was really the extent of it. I was also vaguely aware of alien abduction stories, but I never gave it much thought or had an interest in researching about it. I never in a million years would have thought those things could be real or that it would happen to me. Then I saw this neon green beam of light come down from the ceiling on the right side of my bedroom. I focused my attention on it and kept looking at this beam of light, anticipating for something to show itself. Nothing appeared, but I got this intuitive feeling to look to the left side of my bed instead. So I shifted my eyes from the green beam of light to the left side of my bed. And there it was, a glowing light being standing right up against my bed. Seeing it triggered a full-blown anxiety attack in me. All I could remember was feeling a million volts of fear flush through my body all at once. I could hear myself breathing very rapidly and felt my heart thumping out of my chest. It was beating very fast too. I was also paralyzed, so I couldn't move, which amplified my anxiety even more. The light being was short, and it had a humanoid body with slender arms and legs. Its head was big for its body size, so things were not very proportionate like how they are in the human body. I remember it had big black eyes that conveyed a sense of purity and innocence to me. Its skin was translucent with an iridescent pearl white color that glowed like a glow stick. Actually, it was physically very beautiful, and it had an aura around it that gave me a feeling of calmness, peace, and kindness. Deep down inside, I knew it was friendly, and I knew it came with benevolent intentions. But for some reason, I had fear flood through my body and my mind, which I just could not control. I remember all I did was yell at it with my thoughts, repeatedly saying, "No, no, no, do not take me up onto the ship." I fought it strong and hard. I continued to repeat that line over and over again, not giving it any space to respond. It's almost like, when a person is arguing with someone else and they continuously yell over the other person as a way to prevent the other person from getting a word in. Yeah, that's what I did. I want to clarify something though. No actual words were ever spoken. Light beings and all other non-physical entities do not speak. They don't have mouths, vocal cords, or voices. These are physiological traits of human beings, and they don't apply to non-physical entities. Instead, they use their consciousness to establish a mind-to-mind connection that allows for instant thought transfer. In other words, they communicate through telepathy. Telepathy is actually a very natural human ability, and if you develop yourself spiritually, you can do it too. I use telepathy, and I can confirm it works every single time. Also, animals communicate this way as well. Even though I was being stubborn in our communication, the light being continued to stand beside my bed, calmly, patiently, and lovingly. It waited for an opportunity, an opening, where it could send me a thought, but I never allowed it. After a while, it knew that it wasn't going to be able to get through to me this way, so guess what it did? It shape-shifted into a white dove, and it sat on my chest, inching a little closer and closer towards my face. At the time, I was too overwhelmed with my own fear and occupied with saying no that I couldn't appreciate the beauty of the white dove. In my head, I said to it, "Oh, you can't trick me by turning into something I'm familiar with and something pretty. I know it's still you. Get away from me. I don't want to go up on the ship." Then the dove disappeared and the light being was no longer in my room. However, the flashing lights and the neon green beam of light was still present, and just the entire ambience in my room was still different. It hadn't gone back to normal yet. So I laid there and I waited. The light being knew I wasn't open to speaking to it in any way, shape, or form, but it clearly wanted to deliver me a message. So it comes up with an innovative way to bypass my fear. It sends a green glass bottle down the beam of light that has something in it for me. I drink it and receive the message in the bottle. There's only 2 words in that message. Do you want to guess what it might be? Self-love. Once I receive the message clearly, everything disappears and my room goes back to normal. I sit up in my bed in utter shock. I pick up my phone and check the time, and it says it's 9:20 p.m. So that experience lasted for 20 minutes. The following week after that experience, I felt completely different. My sensitivity shot up through the roof, and I found myself picking up on people's thoughts and emotions as if they were constantly verbalizing them to me very loudly. I have always been empathic and sensitive, but this was a whole new level. It made going to work and interacting with people extremely challenging, but that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was that I started to sense the presence of beings following me everywhere, so I was never alone. I remember one time I was on the bus going home at night after work, and I was the only person left. But I kept feeling like someone was staring at me from behind. Eventually, I turned my head around and looked over my shoulder towards the area where I felt the stare was coming from. But there was no one there. The bus was indeed empty. This made me feel extremely uncomfortable, and it scared me. As well, every night for a week after that experience, when I turned off the lights and laid in bed trying to go to sleep, I would feel 2 beings standing in the corner of my room watching me. Their presence was so strong, it seemed as if there were literally 2 people standing in my room. This brought up so much fear in me that I couldn't even get out of my bed at night to go use the washroom. I would pull the covers up to my nose, and it would take me a really long time to fall asleep. Finally, on the 6th or 7th night, the fear was just so overwhelming and debilitating, I couldn't deal with it anymore. So I sat up in my bed in the dark and I burst out crying. I said to them verbally out loud, "I can't take this anymore. If you want to communicate, please take things slow and do it in a more gentle way." Instantly, my vision starts to change and I see these beautiful glowing orbs flying all around in my room. They looked so pretty, and I immediately stopped crying because of that. I was mesmerized by them. They flew towards my face and brushed up against my cheeks like they were kissing me. I could feel their love, and it made me smile. I suddenly felt extremely tired and fell back and went to sleep. That night, I had the most incredible dream. The 2 light beings who were standing in my room took me into their world. It was filled with bright light, and the colors were vibrant in shades that do not exist on Earth. The 2 light beings were very tall and slender. They had a big head and dark blue skin that shimmered. They also had long fingers. They took me around and showed me how to heal with my hands. I would watch what their hands were doing, and then I would follow them, waving my hands over the grass that we were walking by, and then I would see flowers pop up and bloom instantly. They also took me to the tree that was sick and dying. They guided me to put my hands on the tree trunk, and I was able to heal the tree. I woke up in the morning, and I don't usually remember my dreams unless they occur right before I wake up. But this one happened when I first fell asleep at the beginning of the night. So it's interesting how I was able to remember it so vividly, in full detail, including all the colors, to this day. Everything about it felt so real to me, and it gives me the warm, fuzzy feelings every time I think about it. After that, my sensitivity slowly subsided and things started to return back to normal. I no longer felt like I was being followed by light beings everywhere. They were also no longer showing up in my room at night, which I was really glad. 6 months later, I went on a trip with my friend, and during my trip, I met a Native American woman who I ended up getting a healing session from. Up until this point, I hadn't really told anyone about what happened to me. The friends that I did share it with either got freaked out themselves or they started filtering my experience through mainstream New Age concepts like starseeds and the Pleiadians, which just didn't really resonate with me. And there were other friends who just didn't have knowledge in this area, so couldn't help me. So I was holding on to this massive experience inside of me, and I really wanted validation on what happened, to know that it was real and that I wasn't going nuts. I knew that in a lot of Native American and Indigenous cultures, they have stories about star people. So at the beginning of the healing session, I went out on a limb and asked her if she was familiar with extraterrestrials. She casually answered and said, "Oh yeah, I see their ships often and I communicate with them." I was so relieved by her answer because I really needed help integrating what happened to me, and I needed to talk to someone who also had genuine personal experiences. So I told her my experience and she seemed a bit shocked. Then she asked me, instead of receiving a healing, did I want to receive a channeled message that can provide some answers for me? I thought, sure, why not? At the time, I had no idea what a channeled message meant, but if it was going to give me answers, then yes. She went into a trance and delivered me 2 separate messages in different versions of star language, also known as light language. This was the very first time I had ever heard someone speak light language. I didn't even know there was such a thing. It sounded foreign, yet beautiful. I really liked it. She also did some vocal toning, and after it was done, we chatted a little. In mid-sentence, she suddenly stopped and asked me, "You said the light being turned into a white dove, right?" I said, "Yes." And then she said, "Turn around and look up into the sky. Tell me what you can see." Do you know what I saw? There was a cloud in the sky shaped perfectly like a white dove. It lasted just long enough for me to see it. I would say 1 or 2 seconds, and then it disappeared. She then pointed out my shirt that I was wearing and said, "Did you notice you're wearing a shirt right now that has a peace sign on it?" I looked down and I thought, oh my God, she's right. This is crazy. So basically, I received the validation I needed through her. Her parting words to me were, "You don't need to go to other people, including me, to receive healing. You can do everything I can do. You can speak light language, you can do vocal toning, you can sing and heal just like me. It's time to remember who you are." I was very hesitant about what she said, but she did show me an exercise that would open my heart chakra and said if I kept practicing it, my light language would eventually come through. I went home and I thought I might as well give it a try. I really don't have anything to lose here. So I did it, but I did it with my bare feet grounded into the earth as I was watching the sun set. That's just how I intuitively felt I needed to do it. And I'm not even kidding. It took less than 1 minute for my light language to come through. Many more things happened to me after that. I felt like the floodgates just burst open and I was having continuous experiences with interdimensional light beings. But I also met so many other types of spiritual beings. all of this helped develop, expand, and validate who I was and my ability to heal. Validation was something I really needed because all of this was just way too out there for me. Remember, I come from a science academic background. These experiences take the pendulum to the other end, so it's a huge shakeup for me in my life. Oh, by the way, a side story regarding validation. There was an African shaman who was giving a talk, and I went to listen to it. At the end of his talk, I felt the need to go up and speak to him. The funny thing was that during our conversation, he never really even looked at me. I remember he had this shocked face and was a bit speechless, constantly looking to the right side of me and admiring something. Finally, he said to me, "Wow, do you know you have two beautiful, tall blue beings around you? They are powerful and they are healers." I thought, oh, I didn't know they were still following me around everywhere, but thank you for telling me that. Yes, I know who they are. What I want to do now is explore two ideas related to my contact experience. The first one is multidimensionality, which I think will answer a common question people have about spiritual experiences, which is, did it really happen physically, or did you dream it? The nature of reality and the nature of who you are as a human being is in fact multidimensional. The simplest way I can put it is that there is so much more to what you can see, hear, smell, touch, and taste physically. There are many other dimensional realities that are simultaneously occurring on top of this physical dimension. You exist in these dimensions all at the same time, making you multidimensional as well. But most people are just not aware of that. However, if you expand your consciousness and develop yourself spiritually, you can begin to access and exist in multiple dimensions at the same time with total awareness. The incoming energies I talked about in the first episode contribute to this naturally. So if you find yourself perceiving things outside of the norm for yourself, your senses are likely expanding, and this could be the spiritual explanation. For me personally, my spiritual experiences start in other dimensions, but they always end up bleeding into the physical dimension. An example of this would be having an experience somewhere and in nature, and there's drastic weather changes, or experiencing physical effects in my body that last for 1 to 3 weeks afterwards. My understanding is that during these experiences, I am existing in two dimensions at the same time, where I have found a way to hold my consciousness in both of them so that I'm aware of it simultaneously. And because my soul is anchored strongly into my body, I can bring those other spiritual dimensions into the physical dimension. I know this can sound a little bit of a mind warp and trippy, but that is what I have come to understand it to be. So in short, the answer is it is happening both physically and spiritually. I am merging multiple dimensions, or what some people refer to as timelines, into one through my body here on Earth. The second idea I want to explore is the reason why I had so much fear come up. I didn't only have positive and loving spiritual experiences in my life. I have also had encounters with beings who fall on the other end of the spectrum, but most of those are buried in my subconscious. The reason why I responded with so much irrational fear and didn't want to be taken up on the ship was because bad things had happened to me with interdimensional beings as well. Fear was the automatic response that would fire up any time I had an encounter with a non-physical being, regardless if they were good or bad. The best way I can provide for you to understand this is when you rescue a dog who was previously abused, it doesn't matter if the dog is adopted into a new loving family. The dog's initial reaction and behavior is going to be scared, fearful, timid, untrusting. It takes a lot of time to heal for that dog to open up and trust again. So it's sort of the same idea. I think it's important to acknowledge the fact that we do live in a world where duality exists. So that means there is positive and negative, good and bad, love and fear, light and dark. Not all spiritual beings or non-physical entities are positive, loving, and good. There are many, many of them who are tricksters, manipulators, deceivers, and just pure evil. Many beings claim they are something that they are not. If you're having a spiritual experience, it's important to have discernment and caution. But most importantly, you must develop your ability to accurately read frequency because energy never lies, but words and appearances can. This is also true when it comes to human beings. Ask yourself this question: how good are you at discerning whether or not someone is a good person? I would say most people are very bad at this. They simply trust the words they hear and what they see with their eyes. People can choose the right words, wear certain types of clothes, practice certain types of body language, drive certain type of cars, use fillers, Botox, makeup, or filters to portray themselves a certain way, to give them a certain image. Most people buy these images without question and believe these people are trustworthy, kind, and esteemed. But what people don't realize is the frequency of these people often do not match their physical image. So they choose to engage in relationships with these people, to trust them, to buy from them, to partner with them. And then later they find out they got deceived, they got manipulated, and they got used. I think everyone can relate to this at some point in their life. It certainly has happened for me. Well, this is also true in the non-physical realms with spiritual beings. Many entities disguise themselves as coming from the light, as highly conscious and evolved ETs, as high-level angels and benevolent spirit guides with so much love for you. But when you read the frequency of these beings, they don't feel very clean energetically. Just like humans, their frequency doesn't match what they claim to be. So what I really want to say is, when you have spiritual experiences and come across non-physical beings, don't automatically think they are highly conscious, evolved, and loving in nature. It's better to learn how to read their frequency so you don't mistake their costume or their script, their words, for who they really are. In the next episode, I'm going to discuss this idea in more detail and explore some of the darker entities that populate the non-physical realms. It's important to learn about them because whether you acknowledge them or not, they exist. And in my opinion, staying ignorant to their existence will make you vulnerable to their manipulation. It's better to get educated so you can outsmart them. This will be a part of an ongoing series I call Spiritual Immunity, which I will revisit once in a while on this podcast to examine the different types of spiritual pathogens. The purpose is to help you strengthen your spiritual health so you can protect your energy and keep your soul thriving. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you in the next episode.